So I was out in my garden this morning, and every time I'm out there, I remember how Messiah used agricultural things to teach us a lesson. And so I'm always looking for the spiritual side of things. Now, yes, I know sometimes a weed is just a weed, but I'm looking for a lesson. I can't help it. I'm a teacher. That means I want to learn just as much as I want to teach. So when I was working in the garden today, many years ago, I learned a specific rule that I feel is a spiritual lesson about plants. So Messiah tells in a parable how he will allow the wheats and the tares to grow up together, because if you pull up the tares, the wheat will be destroyed. And so I've always thought about this when I'm in the garden, especially with my green beans, because if you have green beans, you know that their root system's pretty fussy. They're not gonna deal with having the roots pulled up. You can't just, like a tomato plant, replant them and call it good tomato plants. They will root like crazy. Same things with peppers. But you have to know your plants. You have to know what they can take. I think that's like Yah looking at us and like us looking at our children. Know what they can take and know what's important. So as a priority, I always weed when I don't have time to do the whole garden, because I've been really busy the last several weeks. We were traveling to Hebrew Fest, and then my dad was in the hospital, and just lots of stuff. Then weather sometimes has kept me out of the garden. So I always prioritize my weeding to make sure I get as close to the beans and plants like that as possible, so that the weeds aren't choking them out. Well, today was the first time I got back in the garden in a while, and I had another lesson come, and that is this: that the weeds you thought were not a worry because they were far enough away from your plants, if they don't get taken care of, they're going to get you too. So when I came back to the garden, the weeds that I hadn't attended to had actually grown so large, and some of them had these extra like shoots that went out and rooted, that actually got them closer to my plants. But also they grew so large that some of them fell over on my plants and started hindering fruit and growth in my plants. And I started thinking about weeds as sin. Now, the weeds that are really close to the plant, those are the obvious ones. They're the things that everybody is going to say, yeah, we shouldn't be doing that. Murder, cheating, stealing, all of those sort of things, the Big Ten. However, I like to say that very frequently we have something called acceptable sins in the body of believers. These are things like worry, doubt. These are awful sins. And yet, because we are human, we experience them. Those that we love experience them. We so often justify them, and we make them acceptable. They're not as shameful as they really should be. And if we let them grow, because we didn't think that they were as shameful as we should have, or as dangerous as we should have to our fruit and to our plant, eventually they can find a way to our plant. Eventually they can find a way to preventing us from fruiting and rotting our leaves as they push us down to the ground. So that's one lesson that I had from the garden today. I'll come back with another one.